Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espey.
Well, first of my good evening. Welcome to the programme this Wednesday evening. It is the 12th of February. It's a half-hour look at what's been going on news-wise on the Isle of Man today. Lots to come in the programme, including more details about those bonus payments paid to some Department for Enterprise staff. Also, if you're a wannabe commissioner, there's a meeting you might want to go to. We'll have all the details of that. And, of course, that fortune-telling spoon. No, really. We'll also keep an eye on the traffic and travel as well, and the weather. There is a yellow weather warning that's going to come into force in the early hours of tomorrow morning. And as ever, if you'd like to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you. studio@manxradio.com is the email address, or you can text. It's 166 177. First, let's join Christian for a rundown of today's main news headlines. Fastamai.
The Department for Enterprise has defended spending £220,000 of taxpayer money in bonus payments over the past 5 years. It maintains they are essential to attract private sector expertise and are pre-budgeted as part of salary packages. The Infrastructure Minister says EasyJet's decision to slash the frequency of services to Liverpool and Manchester is not a reflection on the Isle of Man airport.
It is a business decision by EasyJet, so we're not deaf to the idea that we need to be connected. We know that that's true.
The airline has told Manx Radio it made the decision after reviewing its programme to ensure it aligns with customer demand. Public housing rent arrears have climbed up to just over £878,000 for the past financial year. That equates to around 2.5% of the overall anticipated rental income of £34.1 million. And those behind the new women's team at Russian United Football Club are feeling optimistic about how far it can go.
We've got a lot of ex-players that have come back, but again, it's a slow process. They need to enjoy it. They need to see that actually it's something they want to do long term.
It's hoped the southern side can enter the Isle of Man Women's League next season. In the latest international news now, and the UK Prime Minister's announced a judge-led public inquiry into the Nottingham attacks will take place in a matter of weeks. Valdo Calacane was sentenced to an indefinite hospital order for the killings, while the NHS admitted the system got his mental health care wrong. Barnaby Webber's mum, Emma, says this is a watershed day.
It will be a moment in time where those who failed so grossly will be held to account, but most importantly, things will probably change now.
The US Defense Secretary says American troops will not participate in any peace plan in Ukraine. Pete Hegseth announced a policy shift away from Europe and says the US will instead empower it to own responsibility for its security. And Ireland will wear white shirts during their Rugby Union Six Nations match away to Wales later this month. The change is part of new regulations to help supporters that are impacted by colour blindness. Those are the update news headlines. Next at 6.
Thank you very much indeed, Christian. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. I mentioned that yellow weather warning. It's for ice. It's a low risk, but still for the high level roads. Just be aware it comes into force from 3 o'clock tomorrow morning until 11. So road temperatures likely to be around zero later tonight and at first tomorrow, so it's mainly above 500 feet. The majority of surfaces, though, will stay dry, so only ice where there's any pre-existing moisture, so not too much to worry about, hopefully. So the general forecast, continuing cloudy but dry this evening and tonight, moderate or fresh easterly winds, minimum temperatures generally around 3, but it will, as we know now, be close to freezing over the hills, so that small risk of icy patches there. Tomorrow, dry and often cloudy. There might be some bright or sunny intervals possibly in the afternoon. Maximum temperatures tomorrow just 5 Celsius, so really cold actually, as that east or southeast wind increases fresh to strong. Sunset this evening was 5:20, sunrise tomorrow morning 7:43.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
TE Carbon provide new memorial stones, grave renovations, new inscriptions and fire hearths. Visit us at Hope Street, Castletown, or at Broadway, Douglas, or call 844 440. TE Carbon, here when you need us.
Most builders start with a hammer and saw. Manx Construction start with ideas and imagination. For new build, extension or home office, Manx Construction offer full service from planning to completion. Call Tony on 452 688.
We all need peace of mind. That's where Peace of Mind Manx Will Writing Services can help you. From just £149 plus VAT. Call 671 001 or go to peaceofmind.co.im.
At Bond Fabrics, we're not just a fabric shop. As well as curtains and upholstery and dress and costume fabrics, we've knitting and crocheting wools, made-to-measure curtain and blind service, plus poles and tracks. Visit Strand Street, Douglas, call 611856 or see bondfabrics.im.
You're listening to Update here on Manx Radio, 5.5 minutes past 5. Now, the jury in the trial of a Douglas man accused of causing death by dangerous driving has been shown footage of the moment a 29-year-old man fell from the bonnet of his car. 35-year-old Jackson Joseph Paul is standing trial at Douglas Courthouse following the death of Onken resident Jordan Thomas last year. Our news editor Tessa Hawley is with me now. Tessa, what can you tell us about what happened during today's court proceedings?
So just before we start, I will say that this report could contain information that our listeners may find distressing. And just to provide some context, this case centres around the death of Mr Thomas, who was involved in a collision with Mr Paul's BMW on Harbour Road in Onken on the 25th of February 2024. Now, he suffered significant injuries, and despite being flown to Aintree Hospital in Liverpool, he died on the 4th of March. At Douglas Courthouse today, the jury of 7 was shown 2 video clips which were filmed by Mr Paul's front seat passenger on the night of that collision.
And Tessa, without being too graphic, what can you tell us that they showed?
So the first video showed Mr Thomas lying across the bonnet of Mr Paul's BMW, pulling at the windscreen wipers. And Mr Paul can be heard sounding the horn in response, asking, "What are you doing?" before Mr Thomas is heard saying, "Go, go, go." The second video, recorded seconds later, showed Mr Thomas lying over the windscreen of the vehicle as it begins to move forward. The passenger in the car is heard saying "slow, slow, slow" before Mr Thomas is seen falling into the road. The passenger is then heard saying, "We've got to get out."
And who else did the court hear from today?
So we heard from another motorist who'd encountered Mr Thomas on the road minutes before Mr Paul. She described how she was driving along Harbour Road when she saw Mr Thomas looking as though he was about to cross. Now, she stopped her vehicle and said Mr Thomas got onto the bonnet of her car before getting off again moments later. We also heard from 2 expert witnesses, both forensic collision investigators, who took the jury through the reports they'd compiled about the incident and the speed they believed Mr Paul had been travelling.
And did the court hear anything from Mr Paul?
We did. We heard the interview he gave police following his arrest at the scene. Now, in that interview, he told officers he'd feared for his safety when Mr Thomas got onto the bonnet, saying he was punching his windscreen, adding it was a very panicky moment. Mr Paul said he felt that Mr Thomas was going to attack him and his passenger, telling officers, "I could see it in his eyes." Now, it's important to state Mr Paul denies causing the death of Jordan Thomas by dangerous driving, and the trial will continue tomorrow.
Tessa, thank you. You will be able to find out more about this story at manxradio.com this evening. You're listening to Update. It's 8.5 minutes past 5. Taxpayer money has been used to fund more than £220,000 in bonus payments at the Department for Enterprise over the past 5 years, with the latest figures showing 7 staff members shared £81,676 in 2023 and 24 alone. That's more than double the previous year's total. You might remember we talked about this a little bit on last week's programme. Well, the department says these payments are necessary to attract private sector expertise, but it's refused to disclose the exact performance targets used to justify them. So to bring us up to speed with the very latest, we're joined by Christian now. And Christian, just remind us when this story came to light.
Well, it all started with a Freedom of Information request, which revealed that the Department for Enterprise had been awarding performance-related bonuses for some staff. At first, the details were quite limited. The response confirmed the total amount paid to the number of recipients each year, but the department wouldn't say exactly what metrics or targets had been met to justify those payments. That naturally raised questions about transparency, particularly after the number of staff receiving bonuses jumped from 3 to 7 in 2023 to 24, and the total amount paid more than doubled.
So I guess a big question was, why were these bonuses necessary? And another question, why has the cost gone up? What has the department said in response?
Well, the department is standing by the payments, saying that they are part of a deliberate strategy to attract private sector expertise into government. They say these bonuses are tied to individual contracts, which are separate from standard public service roles. The argument is that these contracts don't include pension contributions or the full range of public sector benefits, so the total salary package is structured differently to make them more competitive. The department also pointed out that these roles are focused on business development and require commercial expertise, meaning they wouldn't typically be found in any other government department.
So who actually decides who gets a bonus then?
Well, that decision ultimately rests with the chief officer of the department. They authorise all recruitment and approve bonus payments, but they say these payments are based on pre-agreed objectives that are reviewed by a senior officer or a remuneration panel.
And do you know why we saw such a big jump in bonus payments in the past financial year?
The department says this is simply down to more staff being on those types of contracts. They explained that the number of individual contracts changes from year to year. Some expire, some are renewed, some are new roles are introduced. In 2023 to 24, more limited term appointments were made and some existing roles were renegotiated. They do stress, though, that every contract is assessed against total potential cost, including the alternative of offering a full public service role with the benefits like a pension.
Let's just clear up any speculation. Have any politicians received these payments?
Not that we're aware of. The department is very clear on that. The ministers and the departmental members do not receive these payments because they are not paid directly by the department.
OK, so the department has explained why these payments exist. I wonder if there are still questions maybe about the transparency issue. Are they still refusing to release the details on those performance targets?
Yes, they are sticking to their position that disclosing the specific performance criteria could identify individuals, which they say would breach data protection laws. Essentially, they're arguing that because their workforce is relatively small, publishing detailed bonus-related targets would make it possible to work out who got paid what and why. That obviously hasn't completely settled concerns over how public money is being spent, but the department insists that these payments are pre-budgeted and justified within their recruitment model.
Christian, thank you very much indeed for clarifying some of those details in that story that we first brought to you last week. 12 and a half minutes past 5 here on Update, and the government has been accused of trying to railroad changes to the state pension through Tynwald. Oncan MHK Julie Edge brought the topic to the House of Keys this week, seeking to open the channels for further discussion. Her motion was supported by fellow members, meaning the topic will be discussed in more detail as part of next week's budget debate. But one politician went into the House with a rather different view. Stu Peters told us he'd changed his mind about the triple lock after a Treasury briefing.
I can see the point of it. And when I was standing for election, obviously as an older person myself, I'm very keen that pensioners get a fair shake. But you've got to balance that against the fact that the pension reserve fund effectively is going to disappear by 2047 unless we do something about it. And I thought that it was sensible to look to the future and make sure that our children and our grandchildren will still get a decent state pension.
We can imagine it wouldn't go down too well with some pensioners. They'll look on this as almost betrayal.
That's possible, yes. I mean, that was why I went onto social media to try and explain my thinking behind it. One of the things that's always bothered me is that our pensioners and those in the UK get a far smaller state pension than those in many European countries. But that came up in the briefing as one of the questions, and apparently these countries have all got a much greater level of contribution. And so that kind of explains it. But no, I mean, I've had a couple of emails from constituents expressing their concerns about the triple lock, and I am comfortable, I think, with the fact that what is being proposed by Treasury at the moment is the best way forward. So it's all very well having a position on something, but I think that can be swayed by circumstances and by development.
Middle MHK's Stu Peters talking to John Moss there. Mentioning budget then, we know that is going to happen on Tuesday. That's the 18th of February. The Treasury Minister will deliver his budget. As soon as that's done, we'll bring you all the details broken down for you on a mini site. There's going to be lots of opportunities for you to have your say. The Treasury Minister will be joining the breakfast team next Thursday for around half an hour or so, just to go through any comments or questions that you might have. You'll be able to text or email those in. And then on Friday, we've got a special programme again with the Treasury Minister, an audience with the Treasury Minister, if you like. That's being held outside of the studios. We'd love you to be there. You can apply for a free ticket if you just go to manxradio.com or our Facebook page. Just find the link there and apply for a ticket. Seats are limited, but hopefully as many of you as possible will be able to join us. It's just gone 5:15. EasyJet's decision to reduce the number of flights it's operating to and from the Isle of Man is not a reflection on the airport. That's according to the Infrastructure Minister, after flights between Ronaldsway and Liverpool and Manchester were slashed between April and October. Dr Michelle Haywood says government is not deaf, that better connectivity is needed.
They only have a certain number of planes and pilots and time to fly them. And so the consequence of that is that they have reduced a number of the short hop routes. So the literally take off and land routes from Liverpool and Manchester to the island are some of the casualties of that. So this is no reflection on the airport or how it's managed or how it's run. It is a business decision by EasyJet. I do know that the DfE is actively in discussions with other airlines about expanding routes elsewhere, and that will continue to be an ongoing theme. So we're not deaf to the idea that we need to be connected. We know that that's true. But in this case, this was a business decision by EasyJet, and it is their decision to take. It's just unfortunate the Isle of Man loses out slightly on that. Nobody likes change and nobody likes feeling like we're losing something. However, services will change and they will evolve and new services will come in to fill some of those gaps. So I think it is just one of those parts of one of those things of being here and running a small regional airline with an open skies policy, is that we're beholden to what the companies want to do.
And I know you mentioned that the DfE is in talks with other airlines at the moment. How hopeful are you that we could possibly see the introduction of new airlines maybe by the summer?
I'm not part of those talks. I know they're ongoing. So, and I'm very grateful to colleagues in DfE that are, actively pursuing new routes. The Strategic Air Services policy that was recently passed is helping support us developing and guaranteeing connectivity, particularly to the northwest and to London, because we know that for different reasons those routes are there. We know we have challenges sometimes with the ground staff and with the equipment that they use. We know we have challenges over air traffic control, and we are actively recruiting and training up more air traffic controllers. So we are alive to all of these. And I think the airline industry is still reeling from COVID. During COVID, airlines pretty much sacked most of their staff. And so people left the industry, and it is taking some time to recover from that.
That is the DOI Minister, Michelle Haywood, talking to Chanel.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, all looking good on the police pages, so fingers crossed your drive home will be pretty smooth this evening. All okay down at the airport and the steam packet as well. The Manxman due in to Douglas at around about 5:30, heading out again to Heysham at 7:15.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at Quayside.
It is now 5:18 here on Update. And I mentioned the local authority elections. It's coming up on April the 24th. And there's a meeting that's been organised for residents of Peel in particular who are interested in standing as a commissioner. Hazel Hannon, who's an existing commissioner, of course a former MHK as well, says it's important for democracy if there's an election in the town so people have a choice of who they want to represent them. She's been talking to local democracy reporter Emma Draper.
It's very important for local authorities. Any election should be contested. And so this is what we're aiming at. We're aiming at trying to get a lot of interest within the community so that people will stand, so that there will be an election. I think certainly over the last 10 years, people have stood to make sure that there will be an election. That's why I stood again 9 years ago now. And So the decisions that are made by local government, this is what the commissioners are, they're the actual government of the area, is so important. And it's so important that there are elections that the public, the voting public, has a chance to express their issues and to vote for people that they want to represent them.
Why do you think it's important for people to stand? I know you said previously that it's important for elections to happen, but you just said you're on the board for 9 years. Why do you think it's important for people to do the role and take it on? Democracy is incredibly important. And I think it's representing the people of the town, and it's also making decisions. So quite an exciting time. You know, there are a lot of changes. There is some legislation going through House of Keys at the moment with regard to local government. There are changes, but I think it's so important that people see local authorities as the government of the area. But they do have to work with central government. So, you know, it is a really responsible position, but it is representing the people of Peel.
That is Peel Commissioner Hazel Hannon talking to local democracy reporter Emma Draper. If you'd like to go along to that meeting, it's being held at the Peel Centenary Centre on the 27th of February, starting at 7:30. 5:20, those behind the new Russian United Football Club women's team are feeling optimistic about just how far it can go, both in the short and long term. One of the club's coaches, Donna Harrison, says they're hoping to enter into the Isle of Man Women's League, while also providing more opportunities for female players going forward.
It's been brilliant. First session we had 24. A lot of those had never played football before. And then the second session we had 22, which was again a lot of people that some have played before, some haven't. And it's just fun. At the moment, that's what we're aiming for people to come along, have a go, get fit, make some friends and enjoy playing football and being a part of something that's actually, there is a bigger picture to it in the long run.
It's been debated over the last couple of seasons where the future, I suppose, lies with women and girls football on the Isle of Man. But for your side of things as a club, to see that level of women and girls getting involved at this stage, how positive and optimistic does that make you feel?
Oh, massively. I think a lot of things, unfortunately, are quite short-sighted and people are aiming to do things now, but that's not how things are going to work. I think it's very much we need to look ahead. The girls' development throughout the island for clubs is fantastic. I think it's just that stepping stone now from the under-12s, under-14s through to the seniors, which I guess that's the little gap that we're trying to plug.
What's the immediate plans for the team? Looking to maybe get yourself a first team set up in the Women's League, take part in the cup competitions? What particular plans are there around that?
I think that at the minute we are aiming for next season, but if that doesn't happen, then that's fine. We will continue with the training, with building up what we have, and we will enter the next year. But I think I'm quite positive, actually. We've got a lot of ex-players that have come back that are really keen to play. But again, it's a slow process, and we just need to build. They need to enjoy it. They need to see that actually it's something they want to do long term. And hopefully we'll get some younger players coming through that we can create a really fantastic team with.
That is Donna Harrison, one of the coaches. And the team is welcoming female players who are 16 and over to get involved with training sessions. They're on Fridays from 5:30pm until 6:30, and they're at the Colby AFC AstroTurf. I might get myself down there. Or maybe not. 5:23, a 2,000-year-old bronze spoon, believed to have been used for telling the future, has been discovered on private land in Patrick on the Isle of Man. Now, it dates back to the Iron Age. It was found by metal detectorist Rob Middleton. And similar artefacts have been found in Britain, Ireland and France. But this is the only 28th example discovered worldwide, the first from the Isle of Man. Well, Rob told us he's been searching for the second spoon in the pair all winter and will continue to do so.
To date, we pretty much know it's not there, but individual examples of these spoons have cropped up in Ireland and in the UK and France as well. Because this is only the 28th known, there's very little actual written material about them. So it's a bit, when you're researching these things, it's nice to sort of build a picture of exactly how something was used or something like that. But there's a lot of conjecture as to how these items would have been used in the past. But 2,000 years ago, we are sort of struggling to build up this picture of these little jigsaw pieces of history. But whoever did use this was obviously a person, male or female, but they would have carried some considerable political influence at the time, or medical influence, or their beliefs were very much nature-based. So they believed that the streams and the trees had spirits and they were connected to their ancestors. So we think then that people who used these spoons would have been very influential at their time. Why they deposited them in these sort of areas, we don't know, but it's a fascinating thought to think that when I removed that carefully from the ground, I was the first person to handle that in 2,000 years. What was going through that man or woman's brain when they hid it away for safekeeping? We'll never know, and if they were predicting the future, I wonder if they saw me coming 2,000 years later with a metal detector. But we can, but sort of, it'd be great to think that the second spoon is out there, but it may not be. It's a case of a needle in a haystack, really. But first we've got to find the field with the haystack in. It really is a bit of a shot in the dark.
That is metal detectorist Rob Middleton. You can find a video of the spoon at manxradio.com. And if I found the second spoon, Rob, I would give it to you so you could predict all the sports stuff.
Predict?
Yeah.
Predict?
Yeah, with your spoon.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of sports stuff, starting things off tonight, Isle of Man athlete Regan Corrin has smashed his own Manx long jump record. The Manx Harriers competitor recorded a leap of 7.28 metres at the England Athletics Indoor Track and Field Championships in Sheffield to claim the gold medal in the men's under-20 long jump event. It eclipses his own previous indoor record by 34 centimetres and is also better than his outdoor personal best of 7.07 metres set in June last year. There was also success elsewhere for him at the meeting in Yorkshire as Corrin took bronze in the men's under-20 high jump event, clearing a height of 2.03 metres, while a closely contested long jump event saw Corrin just edge out Kevin Tinashe Masakume in second, who managed a season best of 7.24 metres, and Abraham Sharif in third, 7.23 metres he managed. Corrin of Manx Harriers was then only beaten in the high jump by Yeiton District AC Joe Otis Poole. He secured gold at 2.09 metres, and Peter Kroniti Salako in second, 2.06 metres, both of which were personal bests for those athletes. Well, as well as becoming the first island athlete in history to clear the 7 metre mark in the long jump in June last year, Corrin also holds the Isle of Man men's under-20 high jump record. Elsewhere, in cycling, Manxman Matthew Bostock has begun his latest campaign representing Great Britain this afternoon. He's involved in the elite men's category for the 2025 UEC Track Elite European Championships, which are taking place in Heusden-Zolder in Belgium, which runs today until Sunday. The men's and women's team sprint and team pursuit qualifying rounds were held this afternoon, with the first round of racing due to get underway at 7 p.m. local time. That'll be followed by the finals of both the women's scratch and men's elimination races. Well, Bostock is one of a 13-strong GB lineup at the meeting in the men's side of things, which also includes 2023 Scratch World Champion Will Tidball and former world record holder Josh Charlton. And finally, Isle of Man Netball has announced its latest squad to take part in Europe Netball's latest under-17 tournament in a few weeks' time. 12 players will represent the Manx flag, with Winnie Davis named captain and Aileen Mayers as vice-captain. The competition will be held at the Antrim Forum in Northern Ireland from the 5th to the 9th of March.
Mystic Rob, what do you reckon? I can get you some big hooped earrings as well.
I don't think I'd suit that look.
You sure?
I'm pretty positive there.
Oh, come on.
But I appreciate the thought.
Oh, all right. We'll work on it. Thank you very much indeed for your company. That is all from Update this evening. Do stay tuned to Manx Radio, though. Spotlight is up next at 5:30 with Howard Kane. Michelle Kane is looking after Greatest Hits for Chris Kinney all this week. She will be here from 6. Then at 9, it's Ernie's Eclectic before Rianne comes and joins you for After Hours from 10. Whatever you're doing this evening, have a great one. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.